last night, or if you watched the YouTube video from today or yesterday when this ends up being another YouTube video, we watched Intersect's video where he polled his community on the hardest and easiest gods. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if his viewers are arena console players or what, but the lists were disgusting. I hated it. So we're going to make our own hardest gods tier list. Obviously I'm not polling you guys. If this goes deeper, I could poll you guys to get your guys' opinion and we could do something similar to what he did, but his is probably look better because he did all the graphics. So that's where we're at. Achilles, I would say Achilles is easy. I would say Agni is average. I would say AMC core easy. Apwash average. Most warriors are going to be easy. They are inherently meant to be easy. They're meant to be tanks and meant to run at you and just slam their abilities. They don't have hard to hit abilities on top of that. Amma, someone told me this is one of the only warriors that's hard. I don't agree. You have movement speed. You don't have to use, you don't have to be skillful for that. You have a dash of silences. You don't have to be skillful for that. Your 2 is something that just comes out of you while you're auto attacking. So as long as you're autoing them, if you're hitting autos, then that 2 is going to hit. So that doesn't take skill. And then the ultimate is a version of original Guan Yu ult, which was considered one of the most OP ults of all time in the game. So how could that be hard? It can't be. So Amma, a joke. On her, I would put on her being played correctly as a harder, like one of the hardest, especially ADC wise. Like if we were just looking at ADCs, I would put on her up there. Most people can't 2-1 combo, so that's just, you know, one of your combos most people can't do. So that alone is gonna put it hardest. Also hitting the ult, like a full ult, can be fairly hard. So I'm fine with that. Anubis, I would put it average. That's actually a lie. Anubis is probably like one of the easiest. That's a lie. Anubis is pretty easy to play. Ao Kuang, I would say, is easy. Aphrodite, I would say at its core is easy. You won somebody, you press 3 ult when they're taking damage, not hard. Apollo, I would say, is pretty easy. Arachne's one of the easiest and been one of the highest winning gods of all time. Ares, I would say Ares, when I say chains are one of the harder abilities in Smite, because his 2, his 3, and his ult aren't hard to use, but 1 AAing in between, are people struggle with that, but I don't think I can put that at the hardest. I really don't think I can put that at the hardest. I don't think there's any way. I don't know how you come to the conclusion some of these guys are hard when they just don't feel like it. Anubis is easy because you're just W keying and you're spamming your abilities. You're really not thinking much. I guess hitting the stun could be considered hard, but it's really not. The combos aren't difficult. In low level games, people try to run from you so they just die. So I'd say Anubis is easy. Artemis, I'd say Art is fairly easy, just bad. RDO, I would say, is average. Athena, I would say, is easy, super easy. Atlas, I would say, is average. Wheelix, I would say, is easy. Those dudes who voted had Wheelix as one of the hardest gods in the game. I think Wheelix is extremely easy. Just not a lot there, to be honest. Baba Yaga, I'd put it average. Bacchus, I would put it easy. Bakasura, I'd put it easy. He's just bad. Bake is one of the easiest gods in the game next to Arachne. Baron, I would put it average because hitting 2s and 1s without hitting your 3 can be kind of difficult. I'd actually put Bastet at average. I think there's some easy parts of Bastet, but I think the ult is very difficult for people to play around and use. I think the 1 is easy. I think the 2 is supposed to be easy and should be easy, but it actually ends up not being because it's a cone similar to Ymir's stun. People just miss it. And then the 3 can be hard for people to use. So I'm going to put Bastet at average. Bologna, I'm going to put it easy. You literally walk at people with your 3 trigger and press left click. Kabrakan is easy. Kamazotz has double skill shots, so I'm going to put him at average. Serb, ooh, we didn't think about this last night. Serb's 1 is one of the harder abilities for your average player to hit in Smite. But does that warrant putting him at the hardest, where his 2 and ult are jokes, and his 3 is also like super easy? Is the 1 ability alone? I think it might. I actually think it might. I'm down with that. CERN is super easy. Chalky is one of the easiest gods to play in the game. Chunga is very easy. Charon is super easy. He was actually voted as one of the easiest, I think, in their list. Charybdis has one of the hardest. Actually, I'm gonna put Charybdis at hardest. Charybdis is one of the hardest to hit ults in Smite, I think. Her ult, if you look at the numbers, they're actually good numbers on the ultimate. It's just so hard to hit, pretty much impossible against players that are paying attention. So I'm gonna put that up there. Chernobog too easy with his global ult. Chiron super easy. I feel like Chronos, I would put it average, simply because it's a mage with no mobility that has to land autos and people can't play around that. Hitting the 3-1 combo is easy. Hitting the free 1s can be hard, so I'm gonna put him at average. Cleo was also voted one of the harder gods by that audience. There's no way. I think Cleo is one of the easier gods. Super easy god to play. Cthulhu is very easy to play. You press alt, walking people. Another warrior that takes no skill. You just W key. Cupid's kit sucks, but it's a very easy kit to play. Ooh, dodgy. I'd say dodgy not hard. I put dodgy in average. AA canceling with the 1 is hard for people, and then the alt can be hard for people to land. So I'm gonna put dodgy in average. I am looking at this from different levels of play, like as many levels of play as I can into one. I think the alt is hard for Cleo, but it's really not. Like there's nothing hard. There's nothing difficult about it. You can literally stack them in a wall and just wait. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing hard about that god. Danzaboru. I don't think Danza's super easy, but I think he's pretty easy. I'd probably say he's average. Disco. I would put Disco in average. It's really hard for people to hit the 2. It sounds dumb, but I've played the game for years. People struggle with Disco too. Erlang Shen is a joke. ESET's pretty easy to play now, bro. You 3, you 2, you can't miss because the 3 slows them, and then your 1, you can't be dodged anymore. I'm gonna put her in easy. I believe it was Cherno easy, nothing else. Yeah, I mean Cherno's got a global ult. Nothing's hard for his kit to hit. He can dash on a wall and not be targeted. It's not like a huge thought process. His whole kit's easy. Fafnir, I would put it average because of his 1. His range 3 in his ult for some people, but mainly his 1. People suck at hitting Fafnir ones. They're on a long cooldown, so it makes you get exposed. Fenrir is easy. You can't miss the 3, and yeah. Freya is easy. You get 1 item and you just W key. There isn't a lot of skill there. Properly played Ganesh, like if we're talking about combos, like knocking up in an ult can be difficult. The 2 is easy to play, the 3 is easy to play, the 1 is easy to play separate. But alt knocking up is pretty hard. So I kind of want to put him in average. Also being smart enough on knowing which abilities you want to silence can be hard. That becomes a knowledge thing and less of a god thing, but it's part of the kit. So I'm gonna put him in average. Gab is easy. Blink alt, shield a teammate. Gilgamesh is a joke, super easy. Guan is super easy. Hachi is very easy. Hades, bro, I feel like Hades is easy at like starter lower levels, but then at high levels he kind of isn't. Am I wrong? Like, am I trolling? Do I put him in average? I'd say Hades is average. I don't think it's that crazy. Like the synergy is 1, 2, 3, right? All high levels he's just ass. That's part of it. His kit's just not good, but like overall playing his kit, it's not hard. Is it easy or is it average? Hades is pretty easy if we're just talking about the abilities. I'm down for that. Hebo, just his abilities alone are easy. You knock up and you ult. It's so easy. Heimdall, we were talking about this last night. People were trying to say Heimdall is hard, one of the hardest. I don't think Heimdall is one of the hardest. I think his abilities are bad. I think the thing that makes him hard is how long his ult takes to channel when you hit somebody, whether they beads or not. It's just a terrible animation for an ultimate. And I think his 1 is bad. I think his 2 and his 3 are really good. I guess positioning his 3 is difficult for some people. So if we're talking about the difficulty of that, I'd be fine with putting him in the hardest, but I lean more towards average. I'm going to put him in hardest now, though, because I get where people are coming from. Hell, I'd say Hell is harder to play. You're spamming your abilities, using your immunity at the right time and correctly can be difficult. Your heal is a skill shot in the middle of the fight people are going to struggle with. The 3-1 in damage form are pretty easy. But Hell also has no mobility and is stuck being in the center of the fight as a mage, which is difficult. So I'm fine with putting hard in Hell, or Hell and hard in Hell. Hero, one of the easiest mages to play in the game. Hercules has some skill shots in his 2. His 2 is going to make me put him in average. I think he's not hard to play. I think most people struggle with his 2, and that's why we'll put him in average. Horus is a joke. You literally run at somebody and you get your combos so easy. Ho Yi, this was another one everyone's talking about. Ho Yi's 3 is easy as hell to use. Ho Yi's ult is easy as hell to use. Ho Yi's 2 is easy as hell to use. The 1, if we're talking about hitting double bounces, is difficult for people. We're talking about hitting triple bounces, insanely difficult to do. But are we talking about that? Is that really the kit? The kit is hitting it once and stunning, and it's very easy. Are we weighing, like, because you get value on this god. If this god could clear, this god would be a good god without any double bounces. So I personally don't think Ho Yi is hard. I really don't. I'm going to put him average because I don't think you play around the double bounces. I think the double bounces are the situation arises and you can take advantage of it, or you get lucky. It's not like something that you can do all the time. It just isn't, especially with the fatter lane, it's just not possible. Hun Bats. I would put Hun Bats in average. His ult's easy. AA canceling for people is difficult. Using the 3, even with the change, is difficult for people. So I would put Hun Bats in average simply because of the auto attack canceling and the 3, using the 3 properly. Most people just don't use it at all. They just throw it out for damage. Ishtar is easy. The biggest problem with her is her dash being able to be blocked. Echel. Echel is easily one of the hardest mages. I think Echel might have the hardest kit dump, like highest damage output, but nobody can play her. Like, there's very few people that play her. I'd put her in hardest. I think a lot of her kit, and then when you have teammates that aren't good, taking advantage of your ult becomes just a massive diff for you. You have to put in so much work for that. So people say triple bounce because it hits 3 times. It bounces twice, but it hits 3 times. That's pretty much where it's coming from, because you're counting the initial, like, you know, you hit them when it comes out of you. Echel's boring? I don't think she's boring, bro. I like playing her. Izanami might be the easiest hunter in the game because of the pressure you're naturally granted and because your abilities are easy to use. Janice would be one of the hardest mages in the game to be played correctly. Jing Wei. I was surprised Jing Wei wasn't on the easiest gods. There's nothing difficult about her kit. Your 2 has AoE spacing autos. Your 1 is not hard to hit at all. Anytime you're knocked up or you walk into your own 1, you use your 3. Like, that's not a difficult thing. And then the ultimate is another thing that you don't even use for damage. It's not a skill shot. You're using that for moving and running away 99% of the time. She's definitely one of the easiest hunters next to Izanami. Yorm. I don't think I'd put Yorm in hardest, but I could, in average, I'd be down for that. His ult can be difficult to hit. Getting into a fight around this 3 stealth can be difficult. The 1, 2 are very easy. I'd say just his ult being difficult to land all 3, I'd put him in average. Kali is a joke. There's nothing skillful about her kit. Kepri, I would say, is a joke. The real thing comes about is knowledge of knowing where to be, like positioning for an ultimate. When we were talking about warriors yesterday, Kali's the hardest. Yeah, okay. When we were talking about warriors yesterday, everyone said Tyr is the hardest warrior, which I think when you look at it, I agree with. I don't think that makes Tyr like one of the hardest gods in the game, but King Arthur, I feel like, isn't hard to play if you know the game at a high level, but for your average player, is he hard to play? There's a lot of abilities and you have to be processing what comes after what, and I feel like your average player can't do that. So I think I want to put King Arthur in average. Kukulkan is the easiest mage to play, or one of the easiest mage to play. That's actually very good. Kumba is not hard to play. Don't even fool yourself. Kuzimbo, I would put in average. I don't think being useful on him is hard, but I do think using his 3 properly can be difficult. I think ulting the right people maybe it's not hard. It is kind of hard, honestly. Like, you press ult and you think you're being useful, but you're not always being useful. And then getting max value out of your 2 is a big struggle for some people. I don't think if you're a good player, it's hard. I'd say the 3 is probably the only hard thing on him, but that's enough for me to put him in average. I feel like compared to a lot of guardians and warriors, he can be a little bit more difficult with his mechanics. Lancelot, that was one I don't understand. This was a big, if you read the comments on the YouTube video I put up today, everyone's like, you think Set is easier than Lancelot? Lancelot's a joke. You press ult and you get out. Lancelot being good and hitting abilities and being in a fight is not easy. It is not. In your 1v1s and stuff, of course, there's a lot of gods that are good in 1v1s that are not going to be good. We're talking about conquest, we're talking about team fighting, we're talking about late game. We're talking about the whole game, but also late game. I think Lancelot being useful in a late game team fight is one of the hardest assassins to do that on. I think there's a lot of swapping between the right abilities. I think positioning is key. If you're full damage, you will die so fast. His ultimate, you don't want to be using to run away every time. You want to be doing damage because it hits hard, but it also can put you out of position very easily. It's hard to control. A lot of people don't use the horse flip, which turns you around as a 180 at all, like your average player. I think Lancelot does fine at super low levels because you just run at people and they're idiots. But in higher levels, I feel like that's not the case. Loki, I would say Loki's average. He's a stupid god, but he's actually kind of average. You're AA canceling on everything. And then ulting in is a skill shot. It's not super hard, but it's still a targeted skill shot. And the stealth is so loud that a lot of people struggle with it. Servers are down right now because Hi-Rez did a reset and it's just console servers. Mammon. I'd say Mommen's average. I don't want to put her at hard. She can be difficult to play for some people, but realistically, everything's so easy to hit that I couldn't put her too much higher. Marticarus is a very easy to play hunter. Maui they had as one of the hardest guardians. I will say he's one of the only guardians with a lot of skill shots. Like between his 3 really, it doesn't seem like a skill shot, but it is, and his ult. At first, I was kind of like, I don't agree with the Maui. Now I kind of do. So I'm going to put him up there. Medusa is very easy to play, tons of AoE, not hard to hit. I'd put Mercury at average, actually. His ult is not easy for people to use, and I don't mean just ulting and hitting somebody. I mean ulting perfectly so you can turn around and do damage is very difficult for most people. Merlin, I would say, is one of the hardest mages to play between positioning, knowing what stance to use, and then actually hitting your abilities. I would put Merlin up there. MLF is easy. Mass AoE, easiness. Mulan has the 3 for a skill shot, but everything else is very easy to hit. I'll put her in average for it. I've done it on other gods. Naja, free ulting is a higher skill like for you to have. That's ulting somebody without any CC, just hitting them from range with just the ult. The sash is technically a skill shot. The 1 is kind of a skill shot. The 2 is nothing. I think because of free ulting, I would put Naja on the hardest. Everyone's gonna be like, but Naja's easy. You 3 ult. I'm not talking about 3 ulting. If you 3 ult, that anyone with the brain is gonna beat your ult. They're not gonna eat the ult. But if you free ult, which is where you hit it without 3ing first, they won't beat that. They won't be prepped for it. Neath. This was also, I think, did they put Neath as one of the easiest? I think they put Neath as one of the easiest in their voting. I don't agree. Neath's ult will be eaten by the tanks in team fights all day long, so that instantly kind of removes one of your abilities from the game. Now, granted, early game, Neath's ult is super OP and very easy, so that I could lean more towards easy for that, but not for the late game. Your mobility for gods with mobility is one of the worst mobilities. So if we're not counting gods with no mobility, we're only looking at all gods with mobility. Her 3 sucks. It is terrible. It's slow motion. It's easy to react to. You know when it's coming out. Her 2 and her 1, her 2 is not hard to hit. Her 1 can be hard to hit a max range. I say because of the way the ult gets negated and the way how bad the 3 is, I would put her in average. Nemesis is a joke. There's nothing hard about Nem's kit. Nike is a joke. Been one of the highest win rate warriors over all the last few years because of how easy the kit is. Nox wasn't listed or even brought up in that video. I would say Nox is one of the harder mages to play. Getting double dashes on the 3, which would be using the 3 to its full power, nobody does that. So your 3 is her hardest hitting ability, if you guys didn't know. You can 3 through somebody and do full damage, and then if you land it to your teammate and you pop out, you do the same amount of damage again. So her 3 has the potential of doing well over 1,000 damage, and I don't see anybody doing that. And then 2-1 comboing is very, very difficult for your average player. The ult's fairly easy, but it is a skill shot, especially at max range. I can see it being somewhat difficult, so I'm putting her in the hardest for sure. This was another surprise. I think Nuwa is one of the easiest mages. 2-3ing is not hard because the 2 is automatic going towards the closest gods, right? Your 1 is not a skill ability. Your 3 is a skill. Hitting the 3 wall with minions will be the hardest part of her kit, I would say, but the ease of her ult makes her a joke. You can be relevant in every team fight by just ulting and doing nothing else. Because you're doing, at least with my build, your ult will do between 500 and 1,000 damage depending on who you're hitting. That's, that's huge damage to hit in any team fight. Nut, I would say, is one of the hardest to play. I don't see low-level players doing anything but feeding on Nut. You're low mobility, super low mobility. The only way you can play the game is if you're able to fight at all times and you know your limitations, which most people don't. The 2 is harder to hit than it should be. The 1 widens your autos, which helps, but it's still, skill shots. The ultimate, getting full use out of it can be difficult because it's easy to react to. Your 3 is short range dash, so it's not going to keep you alive. You feel like Janice is average? They made his 2 easy? Hitting the 2 is not what's difficult about Janice. It's using your portals correctly, because you're not just using them for yourself, and most people will never use them for teammates because they're bad. Using your ult correctly and hitting your ult consistently is nearly impossible. Landing the 2 is not difficult, but it puts you out of position. The 1 and the ultimate are why I have Janice and hard. Odin is a joke. Your 3 is easy as hell to land now. It's almost on, you basically shouldn't miss ever with the way they changed it. Run, I would actually say, is average because your ult placement is very, very important and you have no mobility. I can see an argument for hard because of how long the ult is on cooldown, but the ult is also a joke. If you just know basic knowledge of where to put it, it does insane work without being like an amazing ult. It just has to be a consistent ult. Osiris is a joke. I think that was higher rated for warriors. Osiris is one you could say is hard, but it passes through creeps now, so it's really not. And it's on a 1 second cooldown. Like, come on. Pele, I would say, is easy. There's nothing super difficult about it. You spam the 1, they're not hard to hit. They move fast. The 2 is easy to hit. Your 3 is just movement for you in a team fight. You're just popping it and ignoring it while you W key people. And then your ultimate is not a huge skill shot, and all of its damage is AoE off of it. So that's kind of a joke. Persephone, I would say, is average. I think they have Persephone as harder, or one of the higher rated for harder, if I'm remembering correctly. She's not difficult to play, especially now. It's understanding the kit and reading, and most people can't read. So I'd be okay with putting her in average. Poseidon, I would say, is easy. I don't think Poseidon at his core is easy. His abilities are a joke, especially now with the 3 proccing right away. Ra, I would say Ra is hard. I would say Ra is actually... Ra might be one of the hardest mages to play. If you're not relying on CC, if you're just talking about the god by himself, wanting and ulting people that aren't really wanting anyone who's not right on top of you is hard. Ulting is consistently difficult for your average player. Your 3, I see people use for damage, so you have to decide where to place that. And then the 2, you have to be out of position usually to get value out of the 2. I put Ra on hard. I think Raijin is average. I'd say almost easy because of how easy the 2 is now and because it does damage right off the rip, but I could see average because you have the 2 is somewhat of a skill shot, the 1 is a a channeled skill shot, the ult is a channeled skill shot. Rama, I can't put Rama. Fuck, dude. I would put Rama's ult in hardest, but the rest of his kit I would not put in hardest. Like, his 1 is easy, his 2 is easy. They just buff your autos, they make them unmissable, and then your 3 is a fairly good movement that buffs your next auto. Where would you guys put Rama? I'm betting most of you would think Rama's hard because you have no CC and because of the ultimate. You're saying Rama's easy as fuck? Average, easy? Do we think the ult's easier to hit? I mean, I think like your new players suck with the ult, but for average, for like someone in mid tier, you think they're ulting fine? I could go average. I see an argument for easy, but I also think if you just paid attention to the ult, you could say hard. Rat is easy. I don't know what you would be thinking if you thought Rat, like mass AoE, easy to hit, abilities, big round circles. Ravana is easy. Scylla, I think Scylla's hard for your average player. I think Scylla's almost impossible for your average player. I'd put Scylla in hard. I don't think Scylla's easy. I see you guys play Scylla. You can't hit roots from max range, which is, it is difficult. And then you're never using your ult at the right time to get resets. And your average fucking YouTube idiot is gonna be like, you just ult when they're low, bro. No, it's not that simple. You have to be ulting when you're either out of their vision, so they don't know the ult's coming, they're not going to react to use their actives, or their actives are down, or you need to make sure you ult before they die, which can be difficult getting it up in time. Hard to master? Well, I'm talking about, when I say easy is the hardest, it's using every ability correctly to their max. We're not just talking about using them in general in their least useful version, because that's fucking stupid. Because like, I don't know, like there's things that are just like if you look at Janice, and if you're just portaling yourself around and you're just ulting yourself for movement, you're getting value out of them, but you're not getting max value. You're pretty much doing the bare minimum. That's why your average Janice player sucks dick. So you can't look at it like that. And Serket for the next one. Serket 2 double taunt is the hardest to hit ability in the game. Even people that have hundreds of hours, thousands of hours on Serket, I see them never land double taunts. You have like right now, because Serket's not even good, if you can't consistently double taunt, you can't play her. And then in my YouTube video, people are like, no, dude, you just 2 one person and 1 and you hope you crit. No, bro. Because if you 2 the hunter and you 1 the hunter, the mage one-shots you. Or if you ult somebody, you get 1 shot while you're on their head. Like, playing in a bronze bracket where nobody looks at you because they're bad is not what we're talking about. We're talking about in a real game where abilities are being used correctly and efficiently and, to their max value. Serket doesn't even get played right now. She's fucking terrible. Most pros don't play Serket at the highest level. Like, that's just how difficult the 2 can be to get max value. Because not only do you have to rely on yourself hitting like crazy 182s, which is difficult, you need the teammates and you need to go in really when they're close enough to do that. Set was also put as the hardest, which is just insane to me, dude. Set is not hard to play. Somebody actually commented and said There was more words before this about his other abilities, but they said his ult is a stim, which takes a lot of mechanical ability. Like what? What? You get value out of it by holding left click. I was like, is this real? Like, you just, everything you've said here is irrelevant because of that statement. I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick because I responded to it, so I should actually be able to find it like instantly. Let me see. Did he delete it? You can read all of this if you want. Oh, I'm not all the way down here. His ult is also a stim, which requires more mechanical input rather than hitting a line or an AoE. Like, that just shows you how, like, the people that are commenting and have opinions on this, you don't even understand the game at its base level. Like, we're not talking about high level game, but you don't understand that a stim is not mechanical at all. It enhances what you're doing already. It enhances your left click. So the skill, the mechanical skill will be your left click, which is already part of the kit. You are, like, especially as a melee, that's not skillful. So what are we saying here? Like, that's mind blowing. I think set is easy and a joke, period. I think the only reason it's similar to like the Persephone effect. People can't read the paragraph that goes with each ability because they just don't have the reading comprehension for it. All auto speed gods are the easiest. Yeah, and set's one of them. That's crazy. Shiva is a joke, super easy to play, mass AoE and cone abilities. Scotty, I would actually say Scotty is very easy. She's bad because her kit and because of having lack of movement, but that's not part of like the kit alone, like by itself. Really, hitting the 1 is a big rectangle that moves fast. The 3 is super easy to hit. The 2, you just click on somebody. You don't have to do nothing skillful. And then the ultimate is also a big AoE that you just throw at somebody. Like, it's not skillful abilities. There isn't a lot that makes the god difficult outside of having no mobility, no dash or jump, and then no CC immune ult, but that's gameplay issues. Sobek, I think, is easy because you just 2 into a 1, makes automatically hitting the 1 easy. Your 3 is a big cone, can't miss it. Your ultimate cannot be missed either. Soul, I would say Soul's average. I think consistently for an average player to hit her 2, hit all of the ults, but never hitting all of the ults. The 3 and the 1 are we're not gonna, like, they're easy, but the 2 and the ultimate I'd say are a little bit harder. Maybe not super difficult, but a little bit harder. This was another one we had a conversation about, was Wukong. Everyone was like, Wukong's got the easiest ult in the world. I'm like, okay. In reality, you're building damage Wukong. You're one of the most gankable warriors in the early game. You're one of the highest damage or damage to time output warriors, I guess. So like you put out a lot more damage quickly than most warriors because you're building damage and because the kit has 4 damaging abilities. But that makes the god a little bit more difficult than other warriors because you're going to get ganked. And then you have one of the only skill abilities out of the warriors. Your 3 is, I think, out of all of warriors kits, really like maybe tier. Like your 3 is one of the harder warrior abilities in the game. I mean, you look at Shiva's abilities, all a joke. You look at even Mulan's 1, 2, and ult are a joke. The 1 is easy to hit on Wukong, but it is still a skill shot. The 2 is a joke to hit. The 3 to use properly, most people will not do that. Ever. It just very rarely happens from your average player. So I would put Wukong in a more average area and not be the easiest warrior in the game. The only reason damage works is because he's so safe. That is completely not true. The reason damage works is because he has CC in his kit in the form of a stun and a slow. He has a ranged ability to poke you. And then while you're Aegis, he has the ability to ult. That is how he gets up in the air. That god is one of the easiest warriors to kill. If you're crippled, he can't play the game. Pretty much one of the only warriors that really falls under. Like you could say tier or whatever, but tier and them can just ult out because their ults aren't important parts of their kit. They can waste their ult. You could say King Arthur, but I've already placed King Arthur at a higher level. I say King Arthur is one of the harder, of the warriors, average. His CC is his escape. If Sun Wukong is the easiest god in the game, you guys wouldn't feed your brains out on solo lane Wukong games. I will pull up your all's match histories right fucking now and just see you 2-5, 2-6, 2-10. I see you guys play Wukong. You fail at playing Wukong because you build damage, you're not tanky enough. The reason warriors are a joke is because of their damage output while being super tanky. Wukong doesn't have that damage output while being super tanky. So I'm going to put him in average. Like, if you have an opinion on a god, go look at your last 5 games on that god before you say a fucking word. Because I know you guys aren't going 6-2 and 6-1 on Wukong. I watch you guys play the god. Servers are up for PC. They're just down for console. I don't know. I think Surtur is an easy god to play. I don't think anything about his kit is difficult because you have a slow that makes hitting the stun automatic. Your 1 is an auto attack. Your ultimate is a get out of jail free card that doesn't have to be used to kill somebody because your stun, your 3, and your 1 will kill somebody. The ult is extra. Where like Wukong that we were talking about, the ult's not extra on Wukong. For Wukong to kill a backline, he needs that ult to go off and he has to channel it. Where Surtur can literally just run at you and kill you with his core abilities. All right, I don't think Susano's hard at all. AA canceling became a joke. Old Susano, where you actually had to cancel to AA cancel, I would have put him at average. For lower level players, they can't even auto attack cancel, so maybe you can even say hard. His kit though, his just raw abilities are all easy. Big cone, big circle. 3 you could say is difficult. I'd say using it for AA canceling, which again is where the difficulty comes in. The ult's, a joke. Someone was trying to say Susano was hard last night. I don't know who it was. Sylvanas pre-buff, I would have said was hard. I will put him at average now. His 3 is super, super easy to hit now compared to where it was. Terra was one of the hardest gods to play. Pre-buff, I probably would agree because of how difficult the early game is. Hitting your 2 is really, it is a skill shot, but it's not hard. Your 1-3 is a joke. And then in the video, I don't know if Intersect realized what he was saying, but he said using Terra ult to get value was difficult. Or something along those lines. I might be putting words in his mouth, but it was along those lines. Terra ult is a joke to use. You get in onto the team and you press ult. If it hits 2 people, or if it even hits the person that dies, you got value out of it. So I completely disagree, but I will, just because of her 2, I'm willing to put her in average. Ooh, Thanatos. I didn't even think about Thanatos. It's just his scythe. His 2 is easy to use. His 3 is easy to land, and his ult's easy to land. Is his scythe enough to put him in average? I think it is. I think free scything is rough, and I think that's why people either snowball and crush, or they get shit on. Thanos hard. Yeah, you're funny when you level the wrong ability. I'm gonna put him in average. The Morrigan was also considered one of the hardest god. I don't agree with this either. The reason is the same as in any game with this. They say, well, you have to know how to play every god on the Morrigan. No, you don't. You are not swapping in every god. You are swapping into tanks. Early game, you might swap into mages, but that's not hard. You're not pinpoint using your abilities when you swap. You're spamming them. You're kit dumping. You don't need to worry about your mana. You don't need to worry about anything but getting the whole kit off. There's no playing Poseidon in a game is more difficult than Morrigan swapping into Poseidon. You're worried about way other things. Also, for the late game, the Morrigan is kit dumping. You're 2-1ing and autoing, getting the full procs off, and you're swapping into a tank. Tanks are the easiest gods to play, so I will not put the Morrigan in the hardest. You said the same thing? Yeah, I will never put the Morrigan in the hardest. If she truly required you to play like the high skill gods, like you weren't swapping into tanks, you were always swapping into like, these difficult to play gods because they are technically the best, that'd be a different story, but you're not. Thor. I'd say Thor is average. 2-1 comboing is not difficult, but landing it can be difficult when people are looking at you. You know what I mean? Like straight on reactions can be difficult. Not super hard, more average. The ultimate can be hard, but really I'd say it's more average. And then 3 is a joke. Thoth might be the only god in the game with 3 skill shots that's easy. I need to move him down. I think Thoth is the only god in the game with 3 skill shots that's easy. Right? Like, I can't think of any other 3 skill shot gods that's a joke to play. Thoth can spam. You're not looking to hit every ability because of your low cooldowns. It's not a big deal. So the 1 is easy. The 3's travel time and distance makes it easy. The 2 travel time and distance makes it easy. If Thoth didn't have a 3, I guess you could say he'd be average or maybe hard at that point, but because of his 3, it makes him easy. Tiamat I would put in hardest. Knowing which ult to use can be hard. Knowing which stance to be in and when to commit can be hard. Understanding the passive, you know, the passive is like a joke. It makes the game a joke for TMI, but understanding it is actually a little more difficult for your average player. Thank you, youth. Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi is a difficult one for me too, because if you ult in, hitting all 4 ults can be hard for people. If you ult in by yourself, you're probably dead. Your 3 is not hard to hit. Your 2 really isn't super hard to hit, more average. Your 1 is not hard to hit. I'd say average, because the 1 is still a skill shot, but it's not super hard to hit. Tier. Tier is the hardest warrior. And because I have King Arthur in average, I want to put tier in hardest. I think I would put tier in hardest. I think I would. I think I'd put tier in hardest. I think the fact that to get use out of tier, you want to be hitting more than one god with your offensive 1. Obviously, your sustain, your 2 is like sustain from 2 is a joke. I think the 1 is where most of the skill comes in, and then using the defensive 1 to disrupt multiple people with it can be difficult. Because just hitting one person on tier, I feel like isn't enough. Ul, so easy. Ul and Serket are the hardest 2 gods in the game. Bobby, I know you disagree. Fuck you. If you're playing Ul and you're not consistently hitting axes, which your average player isn't consistently hitting anything, you're going to get screwed because then you're not hitting your combo. The real skill on Ul comes when you can free 3 and 1 people without hitting an axe, and then the axe is just an extra afterthought, or it's a beads burner. Ul used to be harder. I actually disagree. When you used to be able to curve your axes, I think Ul was easier. Most people that played Ul when you could curve the axe actually thought it like the god got worse after, because it was just so weird. Curving the axes was actually pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty cool. Yeah, like flicking is up. I think Ul it's full skill shots. If you're only talking about the combo, like using a 1-3-1, that's the only time you do damage, then you're bad. You can't play Ul and only do damage every time you hit an axe, because most of the time you aren't even in range of the axe. You need to be hitting the 3 at max range, which is one of the more difficult regular abilities to land. You need to be wanting correctly. You need to be not misusing your axe, because if you misuse it or miss it, they'll run at you. I'm definitely putting Ul in the hardest. You have multiple skill shots that, unless comboed, can be very difficult for people to use. No, it wasn't like in the movie Wanted. It's hard to explain. You could like last second readjust the axe a little bit. I don't really know how to explain it, but everyone considered it like curving it. Vamana is one of the easiest warriors in the game. You press alt and GG. That's it. Like nothing in his kit matters but that. Vulcan, you have 2 skill shots that are close range. So, and first of all, hitting max range Vulcan ults and getting them to land is very difficult. The 1 and the 3 aren't super difficult. I'd say they're more average. The 2 is a joke. So I'm going to put Vulcan in average. Shibalanke's kit is a joke. We're going to put Shibalanke in average. The ult is global, always useful. The 2 is a giant cone you can't miss. Your 3 is a big circle you can't miss. And the 1 just enhances autos. Shing 10's kit is a joke. You leap at them, you press 2. You have a big circle ults. Yamoja's probably the most difficult guardian in the game. And it's because trapping with the ult is very difficult for low level players and average players. Consistently landing the 1 stun at range, no average player does that at all. And then if we're talking about average and lower, using the 3 without screwing your teammates over, it's just, you're gonna screw your teammates over. I think Ymir's overall kit is fairly easy. I'd argue that maybe using the wall properly is pretty hard, so I'll put him in average for that. And because he sucks. Yu Wong's ult is very difficult for average players to use. The 2 and the 1 is easy. The 3, I'd say, is pretty easy, so I'll put Yu Wong in average. Zeus's kit is not hard. The 1 bouncing, like you just 2 and throw 1 at a stationary target, that's not difficult. 3 when they have 3 stacks is not difficult. Ulting in a big circle is not difficult. So I'm actually, as a gameplay, I'm going to put Zeus in easy. The difficulty with Zeus comes from his lack of mobility, lack of a CC ult, and lack of CC. or CC immune ult, sorry, or CC immunity in general, and then lack of CC. Jean Kui. I don't think Jean Kui's. Is Jean Kui average? I'm thinking easy for Jean Kui. The one is a skill shot. The 2 is not hard to hit. The 3, you're on top of somebody, so it's not hard to hit. The ultimate hits everybody. I'd say Jean Kui's easy. Yeah, I think Jean Kui's kit is easy. So there is my hardest to eat and easiest gods tier list. Oh yeah, you got a clip of this? How the fuck? Is this it? All right, here's a clip of Ulax. Apparently, I don't know how Brexus found this. That's all I'm gonna say. Still got the tower, boys.
This hood ain't safe.
What? That's all I'm gonna say. We gotta. We'll slow it down.
Safe.
Bro, I like how it jumps. Look at this. I like how it jumps to the side and hits me. So yeah, I guess that's from Curved. I don't even remember the timing for that. No pre-beats, bro. I didn't think that was gonna hit me. Here is my list. So there are some gods that I agreed with, like Emoja. They had them having a Wheelix and hardest is mind blowing to me. Wheelix is seen as a Mickey jungler at high levels. Like, it's not. You don't use the all for pool, so hitting knockups isn't a must. Obviously, doing that, it's also not hard to hit knockups unless you're running straight at somebody. But hitting a knockup is just doing the damage, the free immunity, the burst, the ultimate giving you so much power and attack speed. Yeah, you literally auto 2, or you 3, get in range, auto 2. I don't know. I think tier is kind of easy. I don't. Even when tier is meta, most people suck at tier. I mean, even if we just look at tier as a god that someone plays, most people won't know that if you hit a 1, you need to wait till the end of that channel to 2. They'll 2 early and cancel and you only get 1 knockup. Or they won't 2 at all, they'll wait for them to land and then 2. Why is Merlin hard? You don't know what stance to be in. Your movement is not a good movement. It's very easy to just get no value out of your movement. You have no hard CC. You have no CC immunity. And all of your ability, well, your fire, really, the fire stance is more knowing when to be in fire stance that makes it difficult. The abilities in that aren't hard to hit. But hitting your frost abilities to max value and your void abilities, nobody hits their void abilities. People be throwing their void one at their feet and it's like this big. I said Serb stun is very easy, like very hard to hit. Most people can't hit Serb stun. Ichel is one of the hardest mages to play because she's one of the highest damaging mages and still doesn't get played or win. Charybdis ult is the hardest hunter ult to hit in the game. Also, getting value out of the 2 and the 3 is difficult for your average player. The 3 more so than anything. Gets in hard because of the double taunt and because all of your damage causes you to stand still, which makes you die. Every hunter and mage will one-shot you because of you're not moving on Circat. You're in one small area. Easiest role is warriors. It's probably role-wise, it's probably hunter because of the role, the way they have it set up. God-wise, it's warriors. It's solo lane. Even the guardians, like Yamoja's not a solo lane guardian. Serb is, but it's just the stun. So like if you can't the stun, you just don't play that god. Maui is not a solo laner. Like the guardians that get played in that role are easy. The warriors that get played consistently are easy. Tiamat is definitely one of the harder mages to play. The 1 is a channeled skill shot. We're talking about hitting the whole 1. Most people aren't doing that. Knowing which ultimate to use, having the minions in the right lane to push without leeching. That's actually more difficult than it should be. Knowing whether you should use a tornado or the slowing guy, more difficult. Your 2 in ranged form is also difficult. Knowing when to jump in and be a melee is very difficult for people. Like, we're talking about 3 difficult things on one mage. You also have extra abilities. Almost all the gods with extra abilities are going to be more difficult. I think solo is very easy. You literally build full tank and you walk at people with some of the easiest to hit abilities in the game. They literally haven't released a warrior that is difficult to play ever. Aim trading for Smite is very difficult because it's not direct aim like in an FPS. It's not tracking like in Apex. It's leading. That means you have to know game knowledge of like travel time versus speed of the person's moving. So it's more Smite specific in my opinion. So I don't necessarily know how you practice that even with an aim trainer outside of playing the game and the god a lot.